bunch of nerds playing a board game in the basement and doing funny voices is not satanic. Shocking, I know. But to many parents in the 80s, Dungeons & Dragons was a satanic cult designed as a kid's game. I just wish there wasn't as much math involved. D&D started out as a bunch of guys creating a medieval tabletop game and has now a global community of players, connecting people through fighting goblins with funny names and hanging out with friends. The history of D&D starts in the 70s, but the game has evolved into a complex system of rules and math. Although more than just nerds play it now, even celebrities you wouldn't expect. According to the founders, Dungeons & Dragons was first released in 1974, but the 80s is when things took a sharp turn. After the death of a young D&D player, the game received international attention from fantasy geeks, concerned parents, and the news. For years afterwards, if someone did something terrible and played D&D, D&D was blamed. Things have gotten better for D&D as the panic subsided, but the unfortunate stereotype still exists to this day. When I first started playing, my mom was genuinely concerned that I was actually joining a cult. Now I've played for over 6 years, the longest game being over 9 hours long, a Mountain Dew and Dorito-fueled game with plenty of goblins and dragons. I've also run games for friends and even in my church with my youth pastor and my youth group. A far cry from a culty basement. Not quite what my mom imagined. The game is easy once you get started, so the rules become second nature pretty quick. Almost everything is based on the roll of a dice. Which dice you use varies on character type, spells, and even what weapon you're using. But your main dice is the trusty D20. You want to climb that wall? Roll a D20. Want to try your hand at diplomacy? Roll a D20. Want to try and fight that dragon that will probably kill you? You can roll a D20. More math happens after that, but the initial roll of the dice is critical. Dice are even used when creating characters. What a character can do is controlled around their base stats, such as strength, charisma, and dexterity. Everything, and I mean everything, is based around these. So, rolling to get your scores can be nerve-wracking. Then you have to choose a character race like elves, dwarves, and dragonborn, your character class, fighters, sorcerers, rogues, and clerics, for example. There is endless customization, especially with fans making homebrew classes and fantasy races for even more customization. Now, a traditional setup would be at a table with a sheet of paper that has all of your character information, and a group somewhere between 2 to 7 people. You also need a dungeon master, who is the person who runs the game, and interacts with other characters through potion selling or making funny voices as a goblin. And boom, you're ready to play. There are usually maps drawn out with character tokens that can be moved around, but you don't necessarily need them. Many fans will order customized miniatures of what their character just looks like, just to have. But like I mentioned earlier, anyone can play D&D, especially some unexpected people. I want you to get a mental image of what you think a Dungeons & Dragons fan looks like, okay? Don't think of me. Have it in your head? Did you imagine Vin Diesel? I hope so, because Diesel is such a big fan, he even wrote the foreword in an official D&D anniversary book. That same book included an essay by Stephen Colbert, who was played on YouTube and talked about it on his show. Anderson Cooper talked about his experience with the game on The Late Show, saying that when his character died in-game, he mourned over the loss. However, players are mainly everyday people. Players of all ages have enjoyed D&D since it was created, from young kids to people with grandkids. People from all over the world play, with the most recent edition being translated into 7 new languages as of 2017. With more people playing, even why D&D is played has changed. According to Engadget, a fantastic gaming website, it is now being used as a form of play therapy with young adults and children, and even used in team building with different corporations. It's been a long road from the 70s to the way Dungeons & Dragons is played now, with some surprising people joining in. D&D connects people through storytelling that connects back to the real world, and a beautiful community that at its heart just wants to have fun with loved ones, whether that's through fighting dragons or just hanging out and enjoying each other's company. So no, it's not the Satan-fueled game that many moms from the 80s believed it to be. Although, You can't fight them in the game. Okay.